the resistance.
What's up, everyone? This is the Tin Man with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you are watching this, you are the resistance. And welcome to Tin Man TV. Yes, everyone, this is Tin Man TV. I, of course, am your host, the Tin Man, your white rabbit, taking you down that goddamn rabbit hole each and every day. And if you are watching this, you are the resistance. And this is that Monster Blue. The fictitious product that doesn't actually exist because we are not sponsored or paid for by APAC or any of that nonsense. We are of the people, by the people, for the people. So if you are enjoying this podcast, if you like what we do, please, by all means, share the live feeds. Follow us on our social medias, X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, all at where? REALTWWRN. And, of course, fuck up YouTube's algorithm all day long. Hit those like and subscribe buttons and that notification bell to be notified anytime we go live. And, of course, check out the online store. Tons of great merch. Later on this afternoon or this evening, we are going to be dropping 2 new shirts. I'm not even sure if I should say it right now. It's going to be an anti-Epstein shirt, and we're going to be dropping a Trump-based shirt. I'm not going to go into details on that, but no, it's nothing too awful bad. But yeah, be sure to check out the online store and keep an eye out for all that new great merch and so much more coming down the line. And check out what we already have. Tons of great merch. Shirts, hats, bumper stickers. You name it, I'll make it. Right? Because I want to give you what you want. Which leads me to today's topic. The State of the Union address of Donald Trump that took place last night. Oh my God. Boy, was that a doozy. And before we get into all that, let me remind you, this podcast is one of the only, if not the only, political podcast that includes you in the conversation, meaning that we don't just open our phone lines up every so often and let a few people chime in. Everybody and anybody, all human beings across the planet can tune into this podcast and share their thoughts, opinions, ideas, comments, whatever, in the comment section and be a part of the conversation. I will respond to you in real time. And as always, we're looking for at least 2 new hosts to fill slots on the roundtable on Saturdays. So if you want to join in the conversation, join in the conversation on the comments. And also drop us a line on X or Facebook. Let us know you'd like to be a part of the panel. And if we think you'd be a good fit, you just might find yourself at a seat at the round table. But moving on from that. My goodness. I am at a loss for words. Okay, last night, we had the State of the Union address, and I stayed up till about 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, just critiquing this whole thing, just watching it, slow rolling it, and just nitpicking every little goddamn thing. Because if I'm going to address it, I need to address it properly. And as of such, I mean, there's a lot that does need to be covered here in retrospect to this whole thing. So let's start out with the mainstream media. Mainstream media outlets, I believe it was The Guardian. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe it was The Guardian who said in one of their posts, it was on Facebook, I'm fairly certain it was The Guardian who said it, said not to watch the State of the Union address and not to feed Trump's ego. Now, I kind of have to take an issue with that, because why, if Trump is the enemy of the Democratic people, why would the Democratic media not want you to pay attention to the things he's saying? Why would they not want you to watch the State of the Union address? Because if you have an enemy, you want him, especially in terms of strategy and, political strategy, and especially where the voters are concerned here. If you have a political opposition, a political opponent, a political enemy, you want your vote. Do you not want your voters to know what this person is saying, doing, thinking, planning, lest you be hit with a blindside? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if this person is your enemy, do you not, and is the city president of the United States, and you're opposed to this guy, anything he does affects you. So why would you not want to know what he's thinking, saying, doing, or planning to do? That makes no sense. And why would the media want to steer you away from that, unless he was saying something that he didn't want you to hear? And at which point, I would encourage everybody to sit down and really ask yourselves, what is it they don't want me to hear? Because if he's my enemy, I want to know what my enemy's doing, right? I mean, that would be the general mindset. I mean, like him or hate him, again, he's the president of the United States. Everything these people do affects us because they're running the country. We live in the country, and therefore, by proxy, anything they do is going to affect us. So, yeah, why would we not want to pay attention to what our elected officials are up to or planning? That makes no fucking sense to me. So to the legacy media, what's your game here? Hey, why don't you want people listening and paying attention to the person you say is their enemy? Okay, because only a fool ignores their enemy. Come on, you saying that Trump's trying to kill people and trying to usurp America? That might be something you might want to pay attention to. I mean, come the fuck on, guys. Now, moving into Trump himself, starting off on the State of the Union speech, I almost shut it off, honestly, because it was more the smoke and mirror shit and gloating, especially where gloating was not appropriate. And it was just so over the top and so fucking ridiculous that I'm just like, really, dude? Really? Because you're sitting there going, we're all winning, so much so that people are coming to me saying, stop, it's too much, or this is too much winning. We can't handle it because we're not used to winning. I'm sorry, I gotta call bullshit on that. And it's just so dumbfounding. It's like, really, dude? Your approval rating is, and you're sitting there saying that people are coming to you bitching that we're having too much success, we're winning too much? No. Now, let's break this down. The economy is in the fucking toilet. It's only holding on by a thread. And you watch the China tariffs, they went to fucking shit because you listened to, oh my God, you listened to the dumb fucks in your administration that are fucking cock blocking you. Okay, your own administration again is cock blocking you at every turn, even with the courts following close behind. Several Republicans have resigned because of Donald Trump. And Trump, you're dangerously close to losing the House, both in Congress and the Senate, and being impeached. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't consider those wins, man. Oh my God. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. Those are not wins, man. Those are epic fails. So how you could call those wins, I don't know. Okay. You say we have an administration that listens to the people. Don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining, man. Just don't. Okay. The people have told you to fire Pam Bondi, or as I call her, Spam Bundy, fire Todd Blanche, fire Lutnick, who was the one who fucked you on the whole fucking thing with the China tariffs, and is set to make billions off of having manipulated you, as well as many others, and you have done nothing. Okay? You haven't arrested the Epstein clients. Instead, you guys are slow rolling that shit. You're not arresting the globalist criminals and joining the swamp and arresting all these criminals like Bill Gates, the Clintons, the 13 families, etc. Okay. Everybody on both sides of the aisles is telling you to quit being Israel's bitch, not necessarily cut ties with Israel and break our alliance, but stop being their bitch. Stop giving them money. Stop bailing them out and supporting their criminal wars. Now, I mean, Netanyahu's a war criminal who's avoiding prosecution in his own country for war crimes. Maybe it's time we take a step back and say, okay, Netanyahu, it's time for you to go to jail. It's time for somebody else to take your place, and it's time for Israel to stand on its own 2 fucking feet. Okay, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing anti-Semitic about that. Ain't nothing that indicates that we are not an ally of Israel, but, it's time for Israel to put its big boy pants on and handle its own, as well as staying out of our fucking sandbox. They have their own sandbox. Stay the fuck out of ours. Okay? Again, nothing on that front. The people have demanded that you not only leave, but end these globalist organizations like the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the United Nations. But instead, you form another freaking Legion of Doom type system, your little fucking peace organization that you say is going to oversee the United Nations. Nobody fucking asked you to do that. Nobody wanted that. We want these globalist organizations dissolved, gone, bye-bye, fuck you, go into the furnace, you're gone. Okay, we don't want a new one that's going to oversee everything else. No. You want peace? Do what I and others have been telling you. Fuck all global previous alliances. Form an alliance with Russia. Get mom and pop back on the same page. End this whole, the rest of the world acting like children and pitting mom and pop against each other, like the little dog hiding behind the big dog. Oh, you don't like what I'm doing? Well, I'm going to hide behind Russia and you can deal with Russia. Or I'm going to hide behind the United States and hide behind the United States. Mom and pop pitted against each other. You got the two biggest world nuclear superpowers pitted against each other because the kids got mom and pop pitted against each other. Why not mom and pop get back on the same page? Why don't you say, fuck all the other alliances, form an alliance with Russia, and then look at the rest of the world and go, okay, kids, mom and pop are back on the same page. What's it going to be? Okay, you want peace? That's how you do it. You don't need these world organizations. You don't need new world organizations. Just form an alliance with Russia, get mom and pop back on the same page, and look at the kids going, now what, you little fuckers? Okay, you all sit down and play nice. Mom and pop are back on the same page. We're done with this shit. Okay, and I guarantee you the bullshit would stop. So why do we need to have this fucking conversation right now? Again, epic boo-boo. Hey, here's my next caveat. Hey, claiming that we've had the biggest tax cuts in history. Motherfucker, I only got $609 back this tax return. Whereas I used to get close to $2,000. And that's another thing. And taxation, dude. You talk about it. You talk about no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, but did nothing to make it so employees, or not employees, but the employers had to tally that into the W-2s. That wasn't on W-2s. When people went down to file their taxes, they got blindsided with this and go, oh, well, you need to bring in all your freaking paperwork showing where you had all this overtime so that you could be compensated. Okay, so you got to go through and dig up a year's worth of W-2s, or if you don't have them set as a digital transcript, you got to go to your employer and get these documents back and get copies of these documents. And that's going to take forever. Just to go back to the tax place and finish filing your fucking taxes. Or just say, fuck it, and just take the loss. Brain hurty. Like, seriously, why didn't you just do something about this? Why didn't you have that put into the W-2s and have that factored in? Why was that not factored in and a new type of W-2 issued out that included this tax? Even if it was just a one-time thing, didn't have to be a permanent thing. Why was this an oversight? And again, you should just fucking end taxes. But, we all know that's not going to happen because Congress ain't going to vote to cut their paychecks. And furthermore, you go on talking about these Trump accounts for kids and all that, which is great. Nothing against the kids. All great for the kids. But what about the Doge payments for Americans? That was supposed to be what, $5,000 for each working American? Or the $2,000 you recently promised for working Americans that filed their taxes this year? What's going on with that? The last time somebody asked you about that, you claim you had totally forgotten about it. You're like, did I say that? And who the fuck is messaging me right now? Like, motherfucker, I'm live. Piss off. Like, I don't get why people fucking do that shit. Who is fucking messaging me right now? Patrick, I am on the round table. Give me a now. So again, where is that money? Right? Where is that $5,000 of the Doge money that you are promising to each American? Well, where is the $2,000 that you recently promised? Now, what's going on with that? You said nothing to that. You know, these are things that people want answers to. These are promises not kept, bro. Okay, just dazzle me with brains or baffle me with bullshit, bro. And you talk about factories and jobs coming back to America's, but say and do nothing about those same companies implementing AI and robotics. Yeah, Melania is on the forefront of that and whatnot, but there's no regulations to slow roll robots and AI replacing more and more human jobs each year. Okay, at what fucking point will all these jobs be replaced by robots and nobody's working? Okay, let me point something out to you, Trumpy. If nobody's working, nobody's making money. And if nobody's making money, nobody's buying the products. And therefore, the companies go out of business. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's the automotive industry, the toy industry, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. Okay? If you don't put a cap on this and you don't regulate this to where they can't replace the entire goddamn workforce with robots. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you got robot servers. Okay, I understand where you would need robots for things like lifting heavy equipment or heavy products that human beings can't lift, or things that are too hot or too cold to be handled by human hands, and therefore you need a robot arm for that. I can understand that. But robot servers, robots pushing carts, no, you don't need this shit. Okay? You need to put a cap on this and say, no. But you're not. You're not doing anything about this. The same with the voting fraud. You talked a lot about the fraud there. Why is my shit? Okay? You talk about the fraud and say you have all this evidence, but again, referring back to my first point, where are the arrests? There's not one mention in your speech, in this speech, about anyone involved being arrested. Now, again, what the fuck, man? I got to call balls and strikes here. Okay, and you move on. You blame the Biden administration for all these bad things that have happened, but made no arrests or mentions of the investigation into the auto pen and the criminal elderly abuse of Biden, whose mental capacity is completely okay. his mental capacity has declined to the point that he was barely functional, yet was held up to the public like it was Weekend at Bernie's, and the rest of the time pretty much locked in a bedroom eating ice cream, sitting in his own shit. Okay, this is elderly abuse, and you say nothing to this, and there's no investigations into this, and no criminal prosecutions of this. You know, even without the auto pen, you have elderly abuse. Whether you like Biden or hate him, that is elderly abuse. Okay, the politician that was Joe Biden is gone. He's checked out. He's bye-bye. Okay? Joe Biden is gone. What remains is a decrepit old man who's not even remotely self-aware and is barely coherent. And yet you sit there and blame him for the follies of this country instead of the people who are running the auto pen that you fully acknowledge and arresting these people for elderly abuse. Again, to hell with whether or not you are a Republican or Democrat, or whether you like Biden or hate him. There is no denying the reality that this was a case of elderly abuse. Joe Biden was checked out, bye-bye. And this was just an abuse of a helpless old man. And yet nothing is done about it. Give me a fucking break. Okay, getting back to the economy. You say the cost of eggs is down? Let's look up eggs right now. Okay, I'm going to go to wallyworld.com. I'm going to look up eggs. Let's see how much eggs are costing. Today, let's search eggs. Okay, organic eggs, $5.96. Pasture-raised grade A brown eggs, $7.46 for a 12-pack. Okay, great. The only thing cheap is great value egg, white eggs, 18 count is $2.47. Okay, that's a big drop. Okay. The sell Vital Farms pasteurized eggs for 12 packs, $7.46. Happy Eggs 12 pack, $5.96. That's still pretty high, bro. I mean, you're seeing some improvement for white eggs, but even that's just kind of a little iffy. Okay, so I'll give you a C plus on that. A C plus, B minus on that one. Gas, that's another story, bro. When Trump was in office, gas here in Tennessee was in 2017, 2018, $1.80 on average. By the time he was out of office in his last term, gas was roughly about where it is now, which is about $2.30, $2.40. $2.30, $2.40. In fact, last I checked, depending on what gas station you go to, it was gas out here was ranging between $2.43 and $2.49 a gallon. Okay? Which is admittedly down from where it was during the Biden administration, which was on average $2.80, $2.90. Okay? So we have seen a moderate improvement there, but it's still a far cry from the $1.70, $1.80 that it was back in 2017. Okay? Hey, you want to talk about getting back gas prices back down? You got about 50 cents to go, buddy. Okay? Okay. I want it back. I drive a damn Impala. Okay. I drive a 2006 Chevy Impala. Okay. It should only take on average about $20 to fill that motherfucker up. Okay. If I am spending anything more than $25 to fill up a Chevy Impala, that's a problem. Okay. You say rent is down. Where? Okay. Yeah, costs maybe down, whatever, but are landlords really lowering people's rent? I don't think so. I don't know anybody who's paying rent that has reported to me that their rent has been dropped by their landlord. Okay, so that might be something you might need to look into. Now, moving on to healthcare. Yeah, Trump has proposals on healthcare, and but here's the thing: you can't claim a win on something that's still in the works. Okay, millions are still without healthcare because you killed Obamacare without having something to take its place. Now, I am not the biggest fan of Obamacare. It was a faulty program. The insurance companies exploited it like a motherfucker. There were too many holes in the system with that. And the insurance companies did take advantage. And it was just a bad deal. I'm not going to say that Obamacare was a good thing. And the fact that Obama said, you have to fucking pass this bill before you can read it. And then Congress passed it without reading it. That should have been a big fucking no-no. All that should have been a big fucking no-no. And the fact that nothing's been done about that, I'm fucking pissed. Because you don't fucking, what do they always say? Don't sign nothing without reading it. Okay, you don't sign something into law without fucking reading it. Could say that everybody has to fucking have a cactus shoved up their ass every time they go to the doctor. And you would have passed that fucking bill. Because you didn't fucking read it. Come on, man. You don't fucking do that shit. And as great as the proposal sounds, wanting to do it and being able to do it are two very different things. And, especially if Republicans lose the midterms because of Trump. Okay? Trump, you've said it yourself. You're at a very real risk of the Congress and Senate losing the majority of the Republican seats to Democrats in this midterm election, at which point you're not only facing opposition, okay, it's going to go from minor hurdles to an impenetrable fortress filled with motherfuckers who are going to impeach your ass. So give me a break here. Again, wanting to do it and being able to do it, that's two different things. Shitting out the window and pissing out the window are two different things. Again, continuing on with healthcare, here's another caveat here. Here's another problem. You talk about having lowered the cost of prescriptions, which is great. Okay? We've been putting the majority of the bill for that shit for far too long. But here's the problem. You lowered the cost of prescriptions, but doctors are the ones that write prescriptions. So what good is it to lower the cost of prescriptions if people can't go to the fucking doctor because they don't have health care? What the fuck? Oh my God, it's like wiping before you poop. It doesn't make any damn sense. Yeah, it's great that the costs are down, but you still can't get the fucking prescription because you can't go to the goddamn doctor. What the fuck? Oh my God. Oh. Brain hurty. I'm just at a loss, guys. I'm just legitimately at a loss. Okay, so moving on to taxes. Let's talk a bit about the taxes. Okay, I would say if you can't get rid of taxes, why not use the taxes to provide free healthcare, like in Canada? It's not communism or socialism. It's just the taxes working for the American people, which is what we said was the case since 1913. This is what the government sold Americans on from 1913 to present day. It's like, oh, taxes go to fix roads, taxes go to do this, taxes go to you, taxes do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. And we find out that it's not. Y'all, if we're going to be stuck paying taxes, why not redelegate where the taxes go? Like, actually paying for the roads, actually paying for schools, pay for our health care like in Canada. Okay, I don't think people would have problems with paying taxes if it actually benefited them. I mean, come on. Canadians pay a little bit more on average in taxes than Americans, but they don't bitch about it because, again, they got the health care. They got their shit covered. And again, it's not communism or socialism. It's just, okay, if you're going to be paying taxes and the taxes are for the betterment of society, let's have the taxes go to the American people and benefit society. I mean, kind of a plain common sense solution here. Now, why is it your average Joe like myself is able to point this shit out? Like, come on. You know what? Why is it nobody in the political circles who legitimately cares about America pointing this out? It makes me think that it's all just show pony bullshit and these assholes just don't care. I mean, this is what lends to the idea that these politicians just don't care and are just fucking jerking us off. Okay, moving on. Okay. This one I can't wholly disagree with, but I do have some points I want to make out. Trump moved on to talking about the legislation he passed to stop big corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street from buying residential properties, which is good. No argument against that. But here's the thing. What about the properties they already own? And what about them buying properties under smaller shell companies and independent LLCs like people do? Okay, you have trailer parks and whatnot that are owned by private parties. Growing up, I lived in a trailer park in California that was owned by a baseball player. Okay, he just kind of had his own little thing. Okay, he wasn't a major corporation or anything. He was just a dude. And a lot of these people have companies like LLCs and trusts to protect their assets. Where are we drawing the line on that? Okay, and what stops companies like BlackRock and Vanguard from setting up smaller shell companies to still buy up all these properties? And if it's going to be properties for American citizens and not corporations, I mean, if you're going to cut out corporations entirety, then I got to ask, does that mean that Americans will no longer be held as and seen as corporations? Because that's the whole thing with our names being in all caps on all of our legal documents, our birth certificate, social security cards, identification. Our names are all in caps because they set up this shell company entity and you are a representation of that shell company entity, this corporate entity, this taxable commodity, because you can't tax a sovereign citizen, but you can tax a commodity. Okay, what happens there? Okay? Are Americans still going to be held as corporations? Or will that be an obstacle for future government leadership, that future government leadership can exploit and prevent people from buying or even keeping a home? Because technically, they're corporations, and Trump said that corporations can't buy residential properties. Okay? There's some fine print shit here that needs to be addressed. And again, moving on to that, expanded on that a little more. That raises the question of asset protection and private property rights. Most people have to put their holdings into a trust, oftentimes offshore. Trump knows all about this stuff. He's a businessman. He owns properties and whatnot. Okay, so he understands asset protection, especially having been divorced and faced lawsuits and bankruptcies and whatnot. He understands you have to have certain things in place, like a trust and offshore accounts to protect your assets. So as you're protected against loss on divorce or other exploitable legalities. Now, if corporations can't own residential properties, then what will you do, if anything, to protect private property rights and so forth? Okay, if people can't have and put all their assets, like their home, into a small LLC trust and an offshore account, how are people going to protect their assets from a divorce or a lawsuit or anything where the government steps in and says, okay, we're going to take your property for such and such a reason? Okay, where is the protection there? Okay, again, something that wasn't addressed last night and has never been addressed by any sitting president, including the current. So, what's it going to be? I mean, what are we doing here? Next point, Social Security and all that. I really ain't got nothing to say on that. The proposals he mentioned in regards to matching contributions on people's 401ks, that sounds fucking awesome. And I hope they go through. And so long as all that remains consistent and everything remains intact and there's not an issue that I'm not presently aware of, then I really got no bitch here. I can for now say, Trump, good job. And again, I'm simply calling balls and strikes here. If he does something good, I can acknowledge it and I will give praise where praise is due. I will give credit where credit is due. Okay, again, but I just told the line. I just walked the line and I call balls and strikes. Good, bad, whatever. Okay, if it's good, I'll commend it. If it's bad, pop a spank. Okay, I mean, I'll call it out, and we'll hold Trump's feet to the fire, as we should. And I'll admit, this is my next point. I'll admit, him saying he would block Congress from insider trading or profit was a nice touch, and is something that should be passed. And in that, he moves on to talk about the fraud and all these states declaring. He talks about all the fraud in all these states and is declaring a war on fraud with J.D. Vance at the helm, which is great. But my question is this just another war on drugs, war on poverty, war on terrorism, where it was never actually going to be fixed, but only ever got worse. And how can we argue otherwise when the DOJ refuses to move an inch with Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche undermining and suppressing everything? And we have a president who won't fire them and is implicating himself in the Epstein cover-up. Okay? This is very serious, a very big issue of concern. I mean, that, along with other issues regarding illegals in this country, should be remedied. Even Democrats like Hillary Clinton are acknowledging that point at this point. And I don't think that anyone in the voting class, at least, would argue that though any given law enforcement agency can always be improved. I mean, there's always room for improvement. And always room for improving policies or additional training or whatnot. There's always room for improvement. And as a first responder, whether it be first responders, fire department, EMTs, police, federal agencies, military, whatever, okay, there is always room for improvement. You can always stand to make it better. Okay, so I don't think anybody can even argue that point, that any given agency can always be improved via policy or more training. And we need to have a government open and run. And, I don't think anybody would argue that despite this being a thing, despite, we could always stand to improve. I don't think anybody would disagree that we need to have the government open and running. We need secure borders, and we need our government employees working, especially during these winter months where you have government employees being sent out with snowplows and whatnot, and they're not working right now, which puts all other businesses out of work because the roads aren't clear, especially in northern states where the snow is really bad. Okay? I don't think anybody can deny we need the government back open. We need things running. Okay? And on that note, I'm not surprised that given the shutdown and the issues at the border, I'm not surprised at this point that these cartel attacks are happening during the government shutdown. I mean, it just seems way too much of a coincidence here. And we, like them or hate them, we need ICE and the Border Patrol doing their jobs safely, properly, and efficiently. Okay? Whether you like them or hate them, whether you think they're overstepping their bounds and their authority, again, that goes back to improving on policies and training and all that. And again, I don't think anybody could argue that things in terms of a law enforcement agency or a first responder, there's always room for improvement. Okay? But we definitely need these people here doing their jobs. One of the biggest priorities of any country is protecting its borders and protecting the sovereignty of its citizens, the sovereignty of the nation and its citizens from all enemies, foreign and domestic, from within and from without. Okay? You want a safe country that runs like a well-oiled machine. Naturally. So you need the government running, and you need these varying agencies and programs to make things run. Okay? That's the way the system's set up. Now, if you want to get rid of these things, okay. What are you going to do to keep the country safe and secure and running like a well-oiled machine? Okay? What are you going to do? Okay? So That would be my question to the left on that. And when Trump was talking about all this, he was talking about all these things. I was honestly surprised to see a fair amount of people on the left that actually stood up for and applauded Trump regarding his remarks on immigration after he called for a show of support. It wasn't the majority by a long shot, but there were still quite a few people who on the left stood up in support of Trump when he called for a show of support. Like, that honestly took me by surprise. And I sat there, I watched the whole damn thing. I watched the whole thing from beginning to end. So that honestly surprised me. And it didn't just happen once, it happened quite a few times. Again, the majority of the Democrats stayed seated, and a lot of people are going to be quick to point out that the Democrats didn't show support for the Olympic hockey team or victims who had died in varying circumstances because of these varying issues. But it was honestly surprising to see that there were still quite a few people on the left that actually stood up. That really surprised me. And would actually be something that would give me hope. It's like, hey, maybe we can actually be adults and work together for the betterment of the country. I'm like, yeah, you don't necessarily have to like Trump, but he is the president. Let's make the best of a bad situation and just run the country. Let's do the best we can. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's that. I've really got nothing more that I can add on that one. So I'm just going to move on from that because I've really got nothing I can add to that in terms of policy or anything of that nature. Same with the SAFE Act, the transgender stuff, and I mean, both sides of the voting class would agree on these points. So I really don't think that's really anything to harp on. So I'm just going to move on from that. But I will remark that Democrats calling Trump out on his unprofessional behavior, namely his vocabulary and trolling nature. Democrats have always been quick to call Trump out on what they deem as unacceptable behavior and his, quote, trolling nature, and saying it's unprofessional, which it is. I'm not going to say it's not. But last night we have Democrats, including Omar, cussing him out on camera throughout his entire address, to which, I got to call balls and strikes here, guys. And I got to do it on both sides of the aisle here. There can't be room for political bias. So I got to ask, where's the professionalism? You say Trump is childish, unprofessional, and narcissistic, and then you turn around and do the same shit. Seriously, two wrongs don't make a right, guys. Two wrongs don't make a right. And it's not helping you, okay? This is just childish. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the majority of people are right in suggesting a government overthrow is an inevitability. I mean, I would hope not. I would like to think we could find a peaceful solution to these problems within our government. I mean, that is why we elected Trump, why the and I say we as in the majority of the American people. I mean, he got the popular vote, for Christ's sake. So I say we loosely. The American people voted for Trump because they wanted a peaceful alternative to a violent revolution. Okay, but I can't refute the reservations that people have and the suggestion that a violent revolution may be inevitable when we see that we have a government that is being run by children. Yeah, they were screaming, release the files. And yeah, Trump should absolutely release the files and move into prosecutions and all that. And not just release the Epstein files, but the 9/11, the JFK, the MLK files, etc. Okay, he needs to bring all that shit out in the open, and we need to not only know the truth, but we need to start seeing prosecutions on that. Okay, and Trump avoided that like the fucking plague. And it is something that does need to be addressed. Now, I don't make it a point of choosing sides. Okay, I call balls and strikes, Republican or Democrat. If you do good, you do good. If you do bad, you get called out. Okay, if you do good, you get praised. If you do bad, you get called out and you get your feet held to the fire. Okay, because these are our elected officials, and they all, Republican and Democrat and Independent, need to have their feet held to the fire. They are supposed to be representatives, not leaders. Okay, that is where many Americans lose sight on these issues. These are elected officials. They are elected representatives. They are not leaders. They are elected representatives. Ergo, we are the boss. And Trump goes back to saying, we finally have an administration that listens to the people. Okay, great. Listen to me when what I'm telling you. Okay, I've said it all through this fucking video here. Okay, and I've said it many times. Stop giving Israel money. Make them fight their own fucking battles and stop treating us like their little fucking bitch. Get them out of our fucking shit. Get them out of control of our shit. You know, let Israel handle Israel and America handle America. Keep the two separate. Dismantle the globalist system and these world organizations. Stop creating new ones. Stop trying to have a global system. We don't want a global system. The American people have made this very clear. The American people do not want a global system. Okay, disband the global systems. Be done with them. Be gone with them. Release the Epstein files in their entirety. And let's see prosecutions of the perpetrators and the global elites that are trying to circumvent our country and have engaged in this criminal activity with Epstein. You went after Epstein himself. You had him and Ghislaine Maxwell arrested. And now we're sitting here saying that Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked children to nobody. Come on, man. It's not going to fly. We need to see prosecutions. We want to see prosecutions. We demand prosecutions, and not just indictments that go nowhere and fizzle out. We need to see full-on convictions, arrests, all the way up to guilty verdicts and sentences carried out. Okay, that is what the American people are demanding to see. Okay, you want world peace? Okay, accept and acknowledge the reality that this issue between Russia and America and the whole thing with Ukraine is just an attempt at the EU's attempted survival by way of a 20-year war that they would hope would divide up Russia into 5 parts that the UK could divide up amongst itself. Okay? Accept that reality. Accept that the rest of the world is pitting Russia and America against each other in a mom versus pop scenario, the children keeping the parents pitted against each other, and that the parents, Russia and the United States, need to get back on the same page and form an alliance where mom and pop are back on the same page and look at the children, i.e. the rest of the world and all these other countries, and go, okay, kids, mom and pop are back on the same page now. Go back to your rooms and play nice, or mom and pop are going to whoop your ass. Okay? You don't even have to threaten nuclear war or anything. You don't have to even flex on people. You just go, okay, kids, mom and pop are back on the same page. Your little game's over. What now? Go back to your rooms and play nice. Fuck off. Okay? You don't need some fucking new world peace organization overseeing the United Nations. Come the fuck on. Okay, we don't need that shit. Dismantle all that shit and just form an alliance with Russia. Russia wants to be capitalist. Russia wants to be Marilyn Monroe in the bed with the United States. Just make it happen, and I guarantee you everything else falls in place. And stop pussyfooting around with this bullshit. Okay? You want to end taxes? Great. If you can't do it, then make it so that our taxes go towards the American people like we're told they're supposed to. You know, namely like providing health care like in Canada. Okay, again, it's not socialism, it's not communism. You're just putting the tax dollars that Americans pay towards the American people. Put it towards their roads, put it towards their schools, put it towards health care. Great, why the fuck not? Okay? You know, it's little smart things. And at which point, if you don't do it, I have to say that you're not willing to do it because you can't do it because the Rothschilds got your balls. Got a nice firm grip on your balls. Okay? So call my bullshit on that, Trump. Call my bullshit, bro. Okay? If I'm bullshit, show me I'm full of shit. Okay? Arrest the Rothschilds. I mean, a lot of people will acknowledge that the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and JP Morgan and the rest of the 13 families, they're the biggest problem to this globalist agenda. Okay? They're the masterminds here. Arrest them. Seize their assets. Okay? Okay? Quit pussyfooting around with these people. Okay? You have these people on war crimes, attempting to circumvent and undermine the sovereignty of the United States. They have dual citizenship within the United States, so they can be charged with treason and sedition and war crimes. Make it happen, bro. I mean, or just prove to the American people that you have no desire or ability to actually act in the interests of the American people and listen to the American people when they are telling you these are the things that they want. Go back and watch the whole video, Trump. I'm not doing this for more than an hour or so. You can take an hour out of the day to listen to these bullet points. And Jones will tell you the same thing. He's been saying this. I'm not saying anything different than your supporters like Alex Jones and others have already said to you, to your face. Okay? They have made calls to the White House. They have, Jones himself has given you pretty much a strategy guide to the game of ending the globalist system and the Great Awakening and the MAGA agenda. Okay, he gave you the fucking play-by-play book. He gave you the playbook. He gave you the strategy guide. Okay, so I'm not saying anything that these people haven't already said. So just get it done if you can. Otherwise, just admit that you can't do it. And step aside and let somebody else do it. And on that note, I'm going to get out of here. It's technically my Monday. So time to go back to work and do the first responder thing. So, in that, I'm gonna go put the turkey in the oven. And where is my outro music? What happened to my outro music? Oh no! What is happening to my system? Ah! There we go. There we go. So, I don't think I really got any more to add to this. So, if you enjoyed this broadcast, if you resonate with what I've said and the points I've made, please, by all means, share the retransmission and keep the conversation going. I noticed there wasn't a whole lot of activity today, which is fine. You know, it's a weekday and people are usually at work. That's fine. But if you're watching this later on, feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section and keep the conversation going. Share if you like the things I've said and the points that I've made. Share these videos. Get it in Trump's hands. Get it in Alex Jones' hands. Or just get it to your friends and neighbors and family. Okay? Ain't no harm in that. And it don't cost nothing to share the live feeds or to follow us on our social medias. X, YouTube, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, all of it. Okay? Costs nothing to fuck up YouTube's algorithm by hitting the like and subscribe button. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll be notified anytime we go live and you won't miss the broadcast. Which, by the way, is Wednesdays and Saturdays at 11 a.m. Central Time. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Again, share the live feeds, follow us on our social medias, and check out our online store. 2 new shirts coming out later on this afternoon. I'm going to try to knock those out before I go to work. So keep an eye out for that. I will post that I'll post links and all that on X and Facebook later on today as soon as they're up. And with that being said, this is Chris Sheldon, aka the Tin Man with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you're watching this, you are the resistance. Stay warm out there, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters in Christ. Be safe, keep up the good fight, and God bless you all.